Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, everyone. This is our last webinar of the year, so thank you very much for joining us today. Today, we're concentrating on cyber resilience in action, how Arcserve protects against the unexpected. I'd like to introduce to you today our wonderful guest speakers. First of all, we have Carl Green from Arcserve. If you'd like to introduce yourself a bit more, Carl.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Carl, working at Arcserve. As you know, I am the SE, so the solutions engineer, I like to call myself. I've been in the industry for what must be 35 years now. Previously at CA Technologies, where we had many different products and technologies focusing on cybersecurity, funny enough, and also just infrastructure management in general. So I've got a broad knowledge of that. And I am at Arcserve just supporting partners and customers on their journey around cyber resilience. So that's really
wonderful.
Me. And I'm based in northwest London, so that's where I
am. Wonderful. Thank you, Carl. Next up, we have Carl Fontarini. Please introduce yourself.
Fontanari. There we are.
Fontanari. You did tell me at the beginning. I'm sorry.
I was coaching you, Natasha.
You did. You were, and I still got it wrong.
Pronounce my name. Don't worry. Everybody does. Yeah, it's an unusual Italian-derived surname. Oh, and you've got Carl. You've got Carl with a C, not with a K as well.
Oh gosh, I'm not winning here, am I?
Natasha. I'll forgive you. It's Christmas. Yeah. So anyway, parking the name issue aside, yeah, hi, I'm Carl. I'm with Arcserve. I've been on board for about 18 months now. I've been in the industry a bit longer than Carl, actually, probably getting on for 4 decades, without giving my age away. And I've worked across both small, medium and enterprise organizations. Sort of previous backgrounds were in IBM, Sun Microsystems and BT. So I've sold to small, large, medium companies. I've always been in the data storage arena because data is the blood of any organization. And obviously at Arcserve, we are effectively dealing with that as the ultimate, end game here. And, today we're talking to you about how to make that data more cyber resilient, as Natasha's just said. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for the introduction. I would just like to say, if anyone has any questions, we will be answering questions at the end. So please pop them in the chat and we can share them at the end of this session. Right, let's get into it. So why will data resilience matter in 2026?
Okay, I'll take this. So data resilience has always mattered, and it matters probably more than ever. Because as we move into 2026, everybody's seen what happens in the press, and we'll talk about some of those in a minute. But these are, to name but 3, some of the issues, especially in the small to medium size organizations, that you need to be aware of. Ransomware is just continually growing with the advancements in AI, not just necessarily to protect data, and Carl will talk about that, but AI being used as a weapon, not just in defense. So that is the key issue, that the cyber attacks are becoming more sophisticated. The accidental malicious attacks, unfortunately, the human being is the weakest link, right, as per the show on the telly. And you can have the best, and we'll talk about one of the, again, high profile breaches in the next few slides. But anybody can press a button accidentally, and then that just unleashes Pandora's box, and you effectively then just infiltrate your network and your servers and your storage and your databases and your applications, etc., etc. So that is predominantly the cause, and again Carl will talk about how we can help to mitigate that. And then the third one is obviously around compliance. If you're doing B2C, business to consumer, you need to be GDPR compliant. B2B, you need to be, maybe NIS2 or DORA compliant. Okay. There are many others. And obviously, if you are subject to an infiltration, you don't, or you may have to pay, if you want to pay the ransomware. We always advise not to, but if you have to pay the ransom fine, you may have to pay a regulatory fine as well, like GDPR imposing fines on organizations. It's a double whammy, unfortunately. The other interesting one on here, which should have been maybe slide point 4, but don't worry, Natasha, it's fine. In the past 12 months, I have seen a growing, I mean, like you won't get your breath, a growing driver around cyber insurance policies.
Yeah.
What we're seeing, likes of Hiscox Insurance and some of the other big insurance companies, they're refusing now to either pay out or to reinsure you, because they have been hit with so many claims over the last 1, 2, 3 years. Yeah, they're now imposing restrictions on insurance, and that's also business interruption, which could be caused by a cyber breach. Yeah, and they're now saying to their clients, you've got a policy, you now have to prove to us that your environment is much more resilient than it has been. And they've got a bunch of questions. We're actually, watch this forthcoming, might be another one that we do, Natasha, with you. They're actually producing guidelines as to what you need to show them to prove that you are cyber resilient, cyber data resilient. If you're not, they will not pay out, or they will not reinsure you, or they may introduce excess policies like we have on a car insurance. You pay the first $5,000 if it's something really major, and then we'll pay the other 5-10 grand. It's going to get quite scary out there, And the other one in the United States, watch this space, is that if you are a listed company, okay, if you're small, you may not be a PLC, but even so, US organizations have to disclose on their annual financial accounting reports if they've had breaches, because that then can impact the business confidence, and their shareholding value may reduce. What it might mean if you're a small business is you may lose customers, you may lose suppliers, you may lose whatever. So unfortunately, it's all of this is being driven because of what's going on in the marketplace. So I have elaborated a little bit more on that, but I thought I'd just make you aware of it, because it's quite important to recognize what's coming down the line.
Absolutely, all really important information, and it's not only becoming brand damaging and data loss, it's also becoming really expensive, not after but also before as well. You really need to have your cyber resilience in place, and people are going to want to see it, such as insurance companies and customers. Yeah, super interesting.
Well, I speak to customers as well. I speak to them every day. A lot of them are looking to get the CE plus accreditations, like Cyber Essentials Plus.
Yes.
So just the minimum security controls might just be enough to help some of these breaches.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so the real world problems businesses face.
Okay, so I'll take this one again. I mean, I can go down them in the order that they're listed there. Everybody knows that if you lodge annual accounting information, you've got to keep it for 7 years. All right, and that that's probably for everybody on this call. 7 years, you've got to keep that information. Okay, and the HMRC can demand to see that. Yeah, so if they've got a query over your tax return or a VAT return, or whatever else, if you can't produce that information, you're going to be in trouble, right, with HMRC. So hopefully you've got that. If it gets stolen, encrypted, hacked, you got a problem. The customer data, again, personal identifiable information has been around for quite a while now. In the NHS, apparently, and I might be mistaken, in some areas, certain treatments, you've got to keep the data for the life of the patient. So if the patient lives to 100 years, you've got to keep that data for 100 years, right? There's an interesting one, very, very quickly. I am of a certain age, and you'll go, God, he's old. I shouldn't go on about this, but back in the early 60s, when I was born, my mom, right, God bless her, was prescribed thalidomide. Does anybody know what that is? It was a drug used in the 1950s in the Korean War for the American soldiers. Most soldiers in the Korean War were men. Okay, so it was a great drug to help with the pain. And obviously, as any woman knows, giving birth is probably one of the most painful processes. So back in the early 60s, thalidomide was prescribed as a pain, killer for giving birth. Right. The problem with it, every fetus that was born had physical defamations like
Oh,
arms, legs, everybody.
yeah.
Thankfully, my mom declined it, so I have
Very lucky.
normal
Yeah.
appenditures, right? That drug, even now, thalidomide, is still, back in the late 50s when it was originally prescribed, from 59 to 61, 62, is still being lawsuited against the chemical company.
Oh,
Now
wow.
that's
Yeah.
60 years, all that data. I use it as a very poignant example, but it's important to recognize that certain industries require the data to be held for an awful long time. Nuclear industry, medical research industry. So yeah, that data needs to be held somewhere. And it doesn't, what Carl will talk about, it doesn't have to be held on-prem, because you've got all sorts of issues on-prem. I would say in the cloud, and Carl will talk about that in a minute. Intellectual property is the next one. We deal, I've got a client who's a big architectural firm. They generate huge drawings, and that's intellectual property. They're in hundreds of megabytes. Do they really want that on-prem, or would they have that in the cloud? Or some of them have a hybrid. They have it on-prem and they have it in the cloud. But as Carl will talk about, it's held in an immutable and encrypted state, so it can't be, even if it's stolen, they can't use it, and if it tries to be tampered with, it can't be. So protecting intellectual property. There is no guidelines on the duration for that, but obviously you want to keep that in a state that can't be tampered with. Talked about already regulatory documents. That's pretty much like financial records. Operational data, again, is what it is within the business. And finally, employee data, probably the most sensitive in a way, because you hear about the breaches and the credit card details and other bank details. Absolute mayhem, if that was taken. So just giving you some feel for what areas.
Another example, well, sorry to interrupt there. One other example was we worked with a customer that monitors bridges, so that comes back to the operational part of IT.
Yeah. So
they monitor bridges or water levels, and for example, if a bridge doesn't go up or down one day, they need to back up these logs, and so that if something does happen, they can investigate them. So if those logs aren't allowed to be deleted, and they must be backed up as well. So
so they can pinpoint what went wrong when and things.
And just a very final one on this, Natasha. The new one, which will probably be this time next year or the year after, who knows, right? Is LLM, large language modules. These are effectively the databases, if you will, that feed into AI. And it's the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If those LLMs, large language modules, got infiltrated with inaccurate or corrupted data, then the AI output or recommendation could be just totally wrong.
Exactly. Yes, very good point. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so introducing Arcserve. So if you could explain to us what Arcserve is and how it can help these matters, that'd be great.
Okay, well, I'll cover this slide, and then Carl will lead with the actual propositions, if you will. So we've been around since the early 80s. So we're probably one of the oldest data protection companies going. For a long period of time, as Carl will testify, we were owned by CA, Computer Associates. We bought ourselves out of that with financial venture capital backing about 10 years ago, Carl. And essentially we are now just Arcserve, but before we were buried in the vast portfolio that is Computer Associates, right? So we're not a name that everybody knows, but we've been around probably longer than most. Our flagship protection, again, Carl will talk about it, is unified data protection. Backing up your data, be it on-prem or in the cloud or both. We have a lot of cloud-based offerings now as well, as you can see. Obviously, a big one today we're talking about is the ransomware capabilities and what we've done to make it as resilient as possible. We also offer disaster recovery. So, it's not about getting just your data back, but getting your systems back online as quickly as possible. We do an awful lot of cloud-based storage, be it from up to the cloud or down from the cloud or cloud to cloud, as Carl will talk about. So all the permutations, and the big one, which really has come on over the last, I guess probably 18 months or longer, is immutable. And the reason why we and a lot of our competitors do immutability now is that what we've also found is that when your production systems get cyber attacked, a lot of threat actors, before they hit your production, they'll hit your backups first. And if your backups are stored in a non-immutable state, then they hit your production, you're totally, up the creek without a paddle, because you can't recover, because your recovery is contaminated and your production's been infiltrated. So you're in a very, very, very painful place. And so immutability for protecting your backups is absolutely paramount. So these are, the areas that we offer at a very high level. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Next slide.
Yeah. There they are. Oh yeah. So thanks for that, Carl, so far. Yeah. So Arcserve products are designed with a focus on the technology that customers really rely on as the core to their cyber resilience, as we know. So many of you may have invested in other technologies like virtualization, or you've got virtual machines in hyperscalers like Microsoft, Azure, Amazon, Google, etc. And so you know that they are fairly resilient in themselves, these technologies as well. And so we very much complementing what you're doing with those technologies, especially around the backup and archive, but also the speed of recovery. And so we have lots of different products that can help you with the speed of recovery, with immutability. All of our technologies that do backups have space-saving technologies in them as well to save money, of course. So as you can see here in the middle, we've got deduplication, but also the ability to back up those virtual machines on-prem, whether it's VMware, Hyper-V, Nutanix. There's some exciting developments coming along soon for Proxmox support as well. So watch this space. So we can do host-based backups of those, and even supporting the likes of new versions of Microsoft operating system like Windows 2025, of course, which some of you may be already using. So technology is a really big driver when it comes to cyber resilience, as we know. And then I'll be talking in more detail in some of these areas as we move on through this presentation today. Okay. So the first one will be talking about what we've done now in the new release of our Unified Data Protection solution, so UDP for short. So UDP, what we've done is enabled that if you're an existing customer, you might not be aware of this, so it'd be good for you to listen on. And if you're new, again, you'll be glad to know that we've built in AI anomaly detection. And so everyone's kind of used to AI nowadays, even though it's been around a long time. It was just called something different, like machine learning before, where we can identify patterns of behavior. Okay, whether it's in a picture or whether it's in text, we can identify that. So what we've done is we've built in the AI engine into Arcserve for your on-prem or cloud-based backups as well, to identify any patterns of behavior. Okay, so if your data is added, deleted, or modified, roughly in about 10% of the data size, then we can alert you to that fact. Okay, and we know it works because we see customers that are doing things like migrations, file server migrations, cloud migrations, etc. When they do that, obviously it's a lot of data that's being added, so it sets off the alarm bells, and so we can see that works quite well. And what this is really helping you to do is identify clean recovery points or clean recovery point environments where you can restore your data back from. Okay, so we've done a really good job over the years to simplify that, make sure you can identify any type of ransomware attack, and that can be the on-prem or in the cloud. So we also have very tight integration, which I'll come on to in a moment, with our own immutable storage. That can be, as I say, on-prem or in the cloud. And we also have supported new hypervisors in this release as well. So mention the VMware vSphere version 9 and the latest version of Nutanix with their Acropolis hypervisor, which is 7.3. So if you are an existing customer, you're you know that your product is future proof, no matter what virtualized platform you're going to move to. Okay. So we've kind of covered this in the other slide, I think, already. So yeah, we'll move on to the next slide. So yeah, again, Carl's covered this very nicely about the fact that why do we need immutable storage? So immutable storage was something that we've had in our product for about 3 years, maybe even 4 years, come up to 4 years. And we're just in that next generation of immutable technology now. And as Carl was alluding to there, we have the immutable storage so that you can recover your data, right? So what immutable really means is data that cannot be deleted or modified in any way, making it immutable. Immutability has been around a long time, mainly in the email space, where email was seen to be quite a critical part of anyone's system service, and people needed to be held accountable, and it was built so that it couldn't be deleted, right? And now we see that type of technology also in, not cyber insurance, sorry, but the payment methods. So Bitcoin is the word I was going to say. So we see that the transactions can't be deleted. Banking have used that system all the time because we don't want our transactions deleted. And it's the same for any data now. We just need to make sure that data cannot be deleted by anybody, especially now with ransomware. Okay, so just to summarize that point again. So yeah, if you just move on to the next slide. So when we look at what we've done at Arcserve to help you on that journey of immutability and to get your data off-site, but also to meet the requirements from either your insurance company or your audit company, if you're regulated, is to follow a best practice. This best practice is mentioned in pretty much every framework, regulation, even by the National Cybersecurity Centre now. Okay, or if you're in the NHS, with NHS England, it's also referred to. And the best practice for your backup strategy is having 3 copies of your data. Okay, 2 of those copies need to be on different storage media. One of those should be far enough apart from that main copy that it's not affected by a fire or a flood, for example. So nowhere shouldn't be located in the same site. So you don't want all your backups in one place, and then they all get wiped out with your production storage. That'd be terrible. And then one of those copies should be immutable, and then we come to the 0 there. So there should be 0 verification errors. So we have technologies and features in our product to help you automatically scan or do a recovery test in the product as well. So we have immutability, but we have the automated recovery tests that you can use as well, so that you can pass these audits, right? You can demonstrate that you're testing your backups regularly. And along the top there, the top boxes, these are the product names and where they really fit in. So if you need to have an offsite copy, then we have a cloud product that you can utilize, which is very cost effective. So it doesn't include any ingress charges, egress charges, which is where you want to get your data back if you have a disaster. And we have the ability to snapshot or keep snapshots for any length of time that you need. So we talked about retention earlier on. So you can snapshot your backups and make those snapshots immutable so that they cannot be deleted or modified by anybody, not even an administrator. Okay, so this is really where we're really tightening things up when it comes to being able to restore your data. Okay, and then oh yeah, I think I missed a slide. There we go. So it's in terms of what this looks like from a topology point of view. How would you visualize this work in your own environments? So let's say you've got your site there, which it says customer site. You've got your files, your databases, your different workloads, whether they're physical or virtual or even in the cloud. So what we do is we deploy the components. Could be an appliance. So we have a backup in a box that you can use, or you can put the software on your own hardware, because we're a software vendor primarily, but we can ship hardware as well if you need to refresh any hardware in your environment. And the middle one there, the RPS, the recovery point server, is where we store the backups, and then they can be then stored on the cyber resilience storage device, which is keeping everything immutable, so it can't be deleted. And then we can plug you into our cloud storage, so you can send your data off-site. But we're very flexible with our technology, so we're not dictating that this is what you must do. If you have more than one site and your own private network to utilize, you can deploy our products inside your own environment and meet that 3-2-1-1 best practice. Okay, we have the cloud locations simply because we have customers that don't have that luxury of multiple sites, because it's very costly, and they can come into our cloud, which is in an independent data center in the UK, outside of Azure, outside of Amazon, and outside of Google. So you know your data's safe, even when there's outages in the big hyperscalers, as we've seen more recently. Yeah. So yeah. Effectively, I mentioned the flexibility of our solutions and how they can be deployed, but we're also flexible in terms of cost as well. We have different licensing mechanisms that you can buy our technology with, either on an appliance, however many workloads you're backing up, capacity based, or by sockets. And we're still one of the very few in the market that can do multi-year deals as well. So a lot of other vendors are tying you in with a yearly subscription, right? That's what it's all about these days. We've seen that with VMware, but we can still do multi-year deals, perpetual deals as well, to license our technology, right? And again, that makes it affordable, so you can choose the best one that suits your business, as well as whichever cloud storage that you prefer. And I've mentioned some of these on this slide as well, but in terms of our cloud and our immutability, we can implement versioning, so you can always choose how often you want to keep these backups in place: dailies, weeklies, monthly recovery points, as we call them. The deduplication, as I mentioned, is built in for that longer term retention, so we keeping that footprint small so that you don't have to buy shed loads of storage unnecessarily. And everything we do is tuned for performance as well, right? So we make sure that your backups become quicker over time rather than slower. Okay. Cool. So you can learn a lot more after what I've said today based on these links. Okay, on our website, there's online demos. Everything we have is you can trial for 30 days at no obligation, and you can even train yourself on our technology, because we have a learning academy on our website that you can sign up for and learn all about how to use and implement our technology as well. Okay. And I mentioned I've been talking a lot about on-prem backups or operational technology, which is mainly on-prem these days. But we also cover SaaS products as well. So the likes of Microsoft 365, which we use at Arcserve, we're a customer, and we've got lots of other customers using Microsoft 365. But it seems every customer I speak to now are in a hybrid situation. They'll be having data on-prem, but also in the cloud. Or it might be their organization is going to be cloud sensible, so deploy applications in the cloud where it makes sense, but for other things, keep it on premise, based on cost most of the time. And so we do have a cloud to cloud solution for that. So we can back up your SaaS data directly to our independent cloud in the UK. If anyone's listening from other countries, I'm not sure, to be honest, but we do have other locations, not just the UK, that you can choose from. And this product, because it's cloud to cloud, your first backup is going to be in the cloud already. And so what we've done is we've made sure that we keep at least 4 copies across 2 data centers of that data as well, to keep that resiliency in place, right? So we're still following that 3-2-1-1 best practice, but in the cloud this time. And you've got complete control over your backups. And again, the cloud to cloud is immutable. So whatever you back up is ransomware proof. And in this product, we can keep up to 99 years retention as well. But the great thing about this is it's unlimited storage. So if you're migrating your very, very big file servers or NAS devices from your on-prem into the cloud, for example, into SharePoint, into OneDrive, you don't have to worry about storage charges because we're unlimited. Put as much as you want in there.
Yeah, it's a good point, Carl. Just interjecting. So I mentioned the architects earlier, and anybody generating very large amounts of data. Yeah, technically that's always graphical, usually. Yeah, that's the costs that you can incur, especially in Microsoft, right? OneDrive, SharePoint, as Carl said, can be quite prohibitive, right? So you can actually move the data, not just back it up, but move it into our cloud for no cost. So it's a very interesting ROI, kind of return on investment, because buying this, in a way, if you're generating a lot of data, for argument's sake, I know you may not, but if you're generating petabytes, that is that's free, right? With our backup, wherever it may reside elsewhere, chances are it's not. So
thanks, Carl. I mean, I actually forgot to mention the why. Why would you want to back up your SaaS products in the cloud when they're already in the cloud? Well, the reason is your data's in the cloud, but there's a shared responsibility model that all these cloud vendors have. So they'll make your service highly available, up to 6 nines of availability, but they do not back up your data. This is the thing, this is the key thing here, right? So if you have any users errors, data corruption, that data is still your responsibility to back up. Even Microsoft will only keep your email. After that, they're gone. And even in SharePoint, they'll keep your versions up to 93 days, but then that's it. After that, it's gone. So if you have a massive ransomware attack, you might immediately be able to recover from it. But if you don't know, after 93 days, that data's gone. So, you have to apply the same principles to your SaaS applications now to your on-prem data. Yeah. Okay, and then where were we? Oh yeah, so this is going back just to give you an update on the SaaS backup side of things. We do now support, as well as 365 and Entra ID and all the other things, we now have launched support for the Jira and Confluence technologies. And again, Jira and Confluence are used widely in the development space and also DevOps, but mainly in development. And we use it internally at Arcserve to track our own development cycles, the sprints and other things that we use for development of the product. And these 2 products, they do provide like a backup, but it's very simplified. So they'll just dump all the data to one big file, which isn't very useful when it comes to granular recovery. So what our SaaS backup product does is it gives you that speed of recovery, but also that granularity of recovery as well, so that you don't have to recover one big file and then try and figure out where the data is in each of your versions. So this system will back it up twice a day, every 12 hours, for 365 days of the year, so that you can go back to any point in time and recover some of these granular objects that you see on the screen here. Okay? And it's the same with all of the products that we support inside our SaaS backup as well. And so again, I mentioned the trial, but you can literally trial all of our technologies from the on-prem backup through to the SaaS backup and the cloud storage and immutable, what we call cyber resilient storage as well. Okay, so just ping us a trial request and you've got it for 30 days. Even if you want to be covered over Christmas, right? Start a trial. You know, you've got 30 days.
And I'll add to that, Carl, as well. So where you really want to have it, but you haven't got the budget. I'm doing this at the moment, as Carl knows, with a couple of clients in both private and public sector. So I don't know whatever audience we have here, but they've said, Carl, we really want it now. We found that we have this, it's on the risk register, but we won't have the money till April, but we want it now. I can make a case for you, right? So Natasha and 101 will be very pleased to hear this, that we can do actually exceptional extended proof of concepts. So where we have a business request that you want to, you will definitely buy in April, you could have this up and running next week and use it till then, right? I would make a case internally. So worth remembering that point, really.
I mean, especially the SaaS product, because
yeah,
that's less intrusive in terms of you don't have to install anything locally, right? It's just point and click, put your credentials in, and it will start backing up your Microsoft 365, your Entra ID, your Google Workspace, whatever it is, to our cloud. You can get up and running with in less than 15 minutes, to be honest with that. Okay. That was good. Next, real world.
Okay. Brilliant, thank you. That was really interesting, especially the best practices for backup. Really interesting. So next, real world examples. So obviously, there's been a lot in the headlines recently in the last couple of years about attacks, mainly obviously on the big companies. So it would be interesting to look at them and see how Arcserve could have helped. So, for example, the big one, the Knights of Old, they had both their live version and their backup wiped, essentially. And obviously, that's the worst case scenario. In regards to how Arcserve could have helped there, I'm assuming it would have been the immutable backup aspect. That would have been a real help there.
It's a combination, yeah. So immutability means that your data can't be changed. But encryption means that it can't be looked at or viewed. Yeah. So it's a combination of the two. It's all well and good that your data can't be changed, but if it isn't encrypted, they can still see it.
They can still see it. So, yeah, absolutely.
It's a twofold approach: encryption and making it immutable. When I look at these three, BBC, M&S, and BBC. Gucci, sorry. Knights of Old. I'm not reading it correct. Knights of Old, M&S, and Gucci. Okay, so in all these instances, it was the weakest link, the human being, the human factor, and that could be based on a phishing attack. It could be based on somebody clicking on a link that wasn't verified. It could be any number of things. So even now. They're infiltrated with a bogus support call. I need your password and admin. We need to reset your account, and it happens, right? I think a lot of the attacks now are based on initial phishing because they're aiming at the human, the human person. The systems are. I think for a lot of, for the bigger companies, they can afford it. Smaller companies can't, but it doesn't matter who you are, we're all susceptible. I think I mentioned to you, Natasha, before the call, I was at another cyber event and I couldn't believe this. A lady who works in their security practice at Marks and Spencer's actually visited our stand.
Yes.
I mean, ironically, they probably wouldn't be a customer for us or for you, because she said the human factor was the weakest element. We have advanced, firewalls, intrusion detection, protection, SIEM systems, basically all of the technological end, right? They've got it covered. The as you would expect, Marks and Spencer's, the area that they didn't have covered, and this is down to user training. was, you know, not clicking on emails that you recognize, not clicking on links that looked a bit, you know, iffy, you know, taking calls from whoever or numbers that you don't recognize. It's all of that, right? Now, nobody can protect against that. Yeah, you know, it's down to each person. But obviously what then happened was that their data, I don't think some of it was even immutable or encrypted. So it was basically stolen. And of course it was credit card data, right? So now, you know, the dark web has got that data, and they can cause mayhem with that, selling it on to whoever to use it. Hopefully M&S have issued, I think, statements of all the people that were affected. So they should have immediately rung up their banks or credit card companies and reissued new credit cards, right, with the usual 3-pin at the back. Absolutely. Or whatever, you know. But that was really unfortunate that it's like the outer shell was absolutely rock hard, impregnable, right? Yes, with all of the DMZ file, you name it, right? It was there, but inside it's like an egg. It wasn't hard boiled, it was soft boiled. So as soon as they got through the shell, they got to all the gooey stuff, and it was just basically spilled out all over. That's a weird example, I know.
It's the old castle Trojan horse story, isn't it? Yeah.
Quite colourful. So I'm just, you know, trying to drive the point home, really. But effectively, they were taken out because of the human element, right? And yes, had they have had the data stored in an immutable and encrypted format, then they could have said to the threat actors, fill your boots, because you won't be able to do anything with it. But unfortunately, they didn't do that, right? So there is maybe we'll have a conversation. But in a lot of the breaches now, it is that scenario. And of course, we mentioned earlier about GDPR, all that data, and M&S is a B2C business to consumer, you and I. So with credit card data being stolen, they'll have the ICO on their backs now. The Information Commissioner's Office, they'll be quoting GDPR. They'll be looking to fine them, and you know they can still fine up to 4% of your annual turnover. Well, you know, M&S is a £1 billion turnover company, so they could pay 40 million in the fine, let alone the data, you know, that they then have to try and pay to get back, which I don't believe they are. You know, the loss in shareholder confidence, you know, the loss in customers now buying online, you know, all the knock-on effects, right? It's dreadful. Just because of one person. So it's it really does drive the point home. I feel bad for Knights of Old, because I've seen their trucks on the motorway many years ago, when you drive, especially up and down the M6 motorway in the UK. And you know, it was the knight on the horse with his javelin. You know, that was their logo. An 158-year-old company, and it was. I know. Really when they went, because of their data, not only did they go, but all of the supply chain, people that make the boxes, people that handle, you know, whatever other elements, right? All the localized supply chain were affected in the area. It's the same with JLR, Jaguar Land Rover. You know, I'm close to them because I live in the Midlands, and a lot of the supply chain organizations that make all the components for the cars, are now been affected because they weren't able to process orders for 6 months, and they lost £1 billion. And the government with taxpayers' money have had to go in and bail them out. Did you see that on the news the other day? So you know, we will feel it. So guys, buy Arcserve via 101, get protected, because it's going to cost us money out of our pay packets, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's
so there you go. There's some examples.
And as you were just saying earlier, these are just the big companies that make the headlines. As you said, it's the tip of the iceberg, really. You know, there's obviously all companies will be affected by this, not just the big ones, but they're the ones that make the headlines, obviously. So interesting. Well, thank you very much. So if anybody's watching today and, you know, you really want to find out more, and you really want to, you know, being inspired, and you want to truly secure your data, we're offering a complimentary data consultation. So please get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to help you in that way. Right, we did have a question, but you answered it, Carl. Should I still read it on the screen so we discuss it, or?
Go for it.
It's from Phil. So the question was, something I am being asked to do a lot these days is prove my backups are viable and work. May ask what options Arcserve has for testing backups. Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, so I'll put the answer in the chat, but just for everyone else's benefit, in our technology, especially in the UDP solution we have, there's something called assured recovery and assured security, and you can schedule that to run, and that will regularly test your backups. It will produce, excuse me, a report to tell you that the backups have been successful or not. And yeah, you can just run that as often as you like. But it also looks at malware detection and anomaly detection now as well. So yes, you can. You can even boot up, for example, if you take a database server like a SQL database server, you can actually boot that machine up into a sandbox environment, which is like another environment that is not on the production network. And you can test that server in a sandbox environment, and maybe you can try and look at a database mounting or recovering a file from there, or a database as well. And that can all be secured in the backup environment, so there's no disruption to the production environment. Okay, so this is how you can take it as far as you want to go when it comes to testing and automating those recovery tests as well.
Perfect. Wonderful. No other questions, but if you do have any after this webinar, please get in contact with us and we'd be happy to answer any further questions. Thank you so much to you both. That was a really interesting webinar and the final one of the year. So thank you for joining me for that. And yes, hopefully we can do one together next year. Thanks ever so much, Carl.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah, indeed.
Enjoy your holidays.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yes, stay secure and stay resilient.
Absolutely, agreed. Thank you.